Millions of people just living out their lives, oblivious. Unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself. There's something wrong. There's something wrong. You don't know what it is. You don't know what it's there. Like a splinter, driving you mad, driving you mad. Bring the ship up to broadcast deck. We're going in. Taking Neo to see her. See who? You are.
Hey everybody, we're so happy you could join us. This is Jetty Sangster, your host with the most. In this video, we're going to take a look at a couple of things. We're going to take a look at our study group, and we're going to do a deep dive into our study material and our study guide for Higher Consciousness Radio. But let me give you a little bit of background on like where this stuff came from and how it developed and all that stuff. So to know that, I wrote the guide and I maintain it and update it. I wear a lot of silly hats, but one of my main roles and one of the main things I really like to do is I run Houston Ghost Research, which is a spiritual crisis intervention slash paranormal research group. And we basically handle traumatic hauntings and hauntings that are out of control and deal with evil spirits and malicious spirits and people just having a rough time with that sort of stuff. I am the original founder, and I run a group of basically shaman that I train, and we investigate these issues and deal with them and advise our clients. These people in the group have already gone through all of my learning material and been personally mentored through this education program that I developed. Vocationally, professionally, when I'm not hunting ghosts or hosting podcasts, I develop training material for at a professional level for a long time for universities and now for the corporate medical world. So I'm really well schooled in how to put together material and like how humans learn and that sort of stuff. So I took my training program that I developed for this group and I fleshed it out on our website, Higher Consciousness Radio, which is kind of our educational outreach program where we talk to people about all of this stuff. We have a study group there, which is the same study group that I founded in Houston Ghost Research. Those people have moved over and they are now mentors in the study group so that as you work through the material and you start to get these spiritual upgrades, that you have somebody to talk to and somebody to interact with. So to that end, I'm going to dig into the study material. You see a very early version of our website that basically shows off a bunch of our podcast episodes, but where you want to go is Study With Us and HCR Study Guide. This is all of the actual material. I apologize in advance. I wrote this, so if you don't like it and the way it's put together, that's all on me. So you can see even our table of contents is ridiculously extensive, right? So we're going to look at this at a real high level real quick. So we got an about section that tells you about Discord, then it tells you about our study group and how to get plugged into that. We'll dig into all of these a little bit later, but I'm just going to give you a quick overview. The first real subject that you dig into is holographic theory and the nature of reality and multi-universe theory to get a really good understanding and foundation of everything you're about to learn after this. So this list is, you can bounce around and do whatever study units you want in whatever order, but it's put together in a way so that you really should follow it sequentially, and one builds on top of the other. So the first thing we study is holographic theory and the nature of the universe and the fact that the universe is actually a hologram and we're we're not actually, the purpose of this unit is to really illustrate to you that you are actually an electromagnetic waveform of consciousness, aka a spirit, which is what we call that in shamanism. By the way, I use the word shamanism a lot. What that word means to me is it translates to somebody who is spiritually awake. They know what's going on and they can sort of see into that realm, and they've always got one foot in that realm and one foot anchored here, and they have enough skills and enough ability to be able to impose their will onto that level of reality. That's a very specific skill that can be trained, and skill set that can be grown. So when I talk about shaman, that's what I'm talking about. People who have one foot in both worlds and know how to use it. After we break your brain, and you might actually have a little bit of a hard time adjusting to some of the information you're going to learn in holographic theory, because it shakes the foundation of what you think you know as a person, and how the world works. It's amazing. So after that, we jump into investigating the paranormal. That's the next unit you're going to study, and that's there. Well, it was originally there for all the people in my Houston Ghost Research Group who help people with hauntings and that sort of work. But I'm keeping it in the main study group for everybody because I feel like it's really important for everybody to get a good foundation in the paranormal, the types of phenomena that are going on, the theories that are out there, and the science. That's one of the things that all the resources we're going to look at in that unit dig into is the theories and the science and the technology. What are we using? There's even a specific video on electromagnetic voice phenomenon, EVP, because I think that's the clearest, most direct way to really start to gather evidence of what's going on for yourself. So after we get a good orientation and foundation in investigating the paranormal, we're going to go to a bunch of supernatural case studies. We do this because I want you to see that this stuff happens in real life. These are real documented cases. It's not fictitious. You can go do the research, and in many instances, I've provided the links to the research for you. The way this whole learning program is set up is I give you the units to study and the order in which to study them, and it's up to you to follow that order and to actually dig into it. But it lets you jump to whatever unit of study you're most interested in. So I am really interested in these case studies. Excuse me. So we study a couple of traumatic hauntings and a couple of different phenomena. We also study a bunch of near-death experiences because I want you to see that those are real, and I want you to get the testimony from those people and start to see a common thread. We study quite a few of these near-death experiences, and I want you to see the thread that's reported amongst all of those. So then we have a brief unit on mythology and belief by Joseph Campbell and some of his material. That's just to give you a foundation for a lot of what we're about to jump into. Immediately after that, we jump into building spiritual tools, actual tools that you need to learn more and to trigger this awakening and improve your understanding. So we study trance and meditation and hypnosis in the first unit. In the second unit, we study alchemy, sacred plants, nootropics. You learn about the pineal gland and DMT. I introduce you to Terence McKenna and a bunch of his lectures. I teach you about Ormus, which is this crazy mineral supplement that you can make that can trigger a spiritual awakening in and of itself. And then we jump into dowsing. I teach you dowsing is really the first hands-on fundamental practice that you can use yourself to start connecting to a higher order of consciousness. So we study that skill, and I teach you how to do that. Then we study remote viewing, and you'll sit through a lot of interviews of remote viewers who are famous and skilled in that area, so that you can see, one, these people are real, this stuff is real, and there's lots of examples of it. But you can learn from their testimony and start to get common threads of how this stuff works. And you'll see that a lot of them started with something called the gateway process, which is something we'll study in a subsequent units. So then, after you learn about remote viewing and what that is, and the people that do it, we have a baby unit on the gateway process, which is binaural beats and holosync. So we'll study that and what's entailed with binaural beats and holosync, and then we'll jump right into the gateway tapes and the gateway experience. This is deeply tied to, put on your tinfoil hats, this is deeply tied to Project Stargate, and it's the actual program that the CIA used to help kick off their psychic spy process. This is the gateway tapes and the gateway experience. I put lots of videos and lots of documentation so you can see that this is real for yourself and how this works and what to expect. And there's a long series of a guy who goes through the gateway tapes and has it triggers a spiritual awakening for him. He has an out-of-body experience, and it fundamentally shifts the way he looks at the world, because he had a transformational experience because of these tapes. And then give you access to, I don't give you access, you have to get access to the tapes and start working through them to trigger your own. This is the point where you're probably, if the holographic theory stuff didn't trigger a spiritual awakening, the gateway tapes definitely will. This is a technology and a structured learning system using vibration, sound / audio to literally force your brain to change gears and operate at a higher frequency, a higher level. And once you start doing that, it lets you plug into everything that's going on around you, and basically makes you a psychic, makes you a shaman. At that point, you can jump out of your body, you can remote view. There's lots of tips and tricks that come along with that. So then, after you get your spiritual upgrade, we jump into Christianity faith and deliverance ministry. I teach you about angels, how to get in contact with angels, how to, there's a lot of information about prayer and how to work with specific beings on the other side. And we've got a specific unit on faith building and how to really connect to Jesus, the Trinity, the Lord, the saints, like all of that sort of stuff. All of this comes from a Christian faith, but it's not. I'm very not in your face about any of that stuff. I just try to put it up at face value and let you evaluate it. And if it works for you, and adopt it into your practice. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. You know what I mean? So then, for me, we jump into my very, very favorite unit. Like, case studies are awesome. But now we're going to really start studying exorcism, possession, hauntings, and spiritual possession. So there's a big, big unit, hours and hours of content and interviews where you're going to study famous possession cases, and then you're going to study actual exorcist interviews, their testimony about their job, how it works, their cases. You're going to build a big foundation of knowledge by digging through that. And then I'm going to share with you some of my own, as a practitioner, my own exorcism and ritual blessing prayers and practices, and give you a bunch of resources to start building and tweaking your own. And then by that time, you've got all the keys to the kingdom in my estimation. And if we haven't broke your brain by that point, it's not going to break. So that is an orientation to what the study guide is about. I'm going to thumb through it a little bit and show you what's going on with some of the specifics. The way this is put together about the study guide, I'm providing all the information for you to go study and dig on your own. I'm big on not gatekeeping knowledge. I'm going to share everything that I've learned and everything that's helped make me who I am and get me where I am today. We do have a public free Discord server. There's a link right there. I've got a video on how to use Discord if you're not familiar with it. But it's basically a really flexible, easy to use chat system for chat and video conferencing. So all of our group discussions happen on that Discord channel. We also have a Patreon powered study group. So for like a minimal contribution to support our ministry and our efforts, it's like $9 a month. I basically plug you into a private Discord channel where you get direct access to me and all the other group members who have already been through this material, so that you don't have to study and learn and go through this. It's going to be a test of your sanity in a couple of different parts. So you don't have to go through this alone. You can plug into our group, and I'm a big fan of, I don't like to preach, I like to share information, and you take what works, right? So I want you to be able to go through this material, take notes, what's significant to you, throw it out to the study group, and then let the study group, who's already been through all of that material for the most part, echo back to you what they got out of that experience and share their perspective. So you're not learning in a vacuum, trying to figure all this stuff about. That's the whole approach to the study group and why we put it together. That's the same way I train shaman. When we have a new person who's going to be adopted into the Houston Ghost Research, I plug them into that private study group as they start working through the material, and they learn not just from me, but they learn from everybody. Trust me, I'm not the expert on remote viewing. I'm not the expert on a lot of this stuff. Like, my expertise is in dealing with hostile spirits and exorcism and that sort of stuff. But you get to learn from the whole group with the Patreon program. I love the way that's set up. And if you, for some reason, have some extenuating circumstances and you can't afford $9 a month, but you still really want to get plugged into that program, you can go on the public Discord and ask questions in the general channel, and somebody will eventually respond. Somebody will eventually get out to you and try to get you some additional information. So this is our dig into holographic theory. There's several hours of video here. This is not something you can sit down and watch all at once. So you want to go through each one of these videos. Each one of them is over an hour, and take some time between each one. I recommend not doing any more than one of these videos, in particular, the holographic universe videos. Do one a day and give yourself some time to process. Maybe even one a week, because there's a lot of material here, and it's going to change the way you work and you look at the world. So the next thing you're going to look at is our podcast episode, where we actually interview the guy who made this workshop, Stephen Davis, and talk to him and work through that material with him. That's what this link is. And this is, we've got a bunch of other resources. This will change. But this is really about Greg Braden and the Divine Matrix and his work there, which is unspeakably cool. I love listening to him. He's kind of one of my mentors. Greg Braden is awesome. A couple of other videos in this section, and then we get to the actual book. If you want to read that, it's super dense. It goes into a lot of deep science that you might struggle to follow if you don't have that background. But it's got great stories and great anecdotal examples that are not in the Holographic Universe workshops by Stephen Davis. So it's definitely worth picking up. And then we talk about a couple of other books, talk about the Matrix and how that works in references to everything else. And then we get into the paranormal investigation. It's just a couple of books, and I gave you a couple of videos to get you started. You'll see Y-Files referenced many times in this study guide, because this guy does great videos, and he's a good storyteller. I like his material. So when we jump into case studies, The very first book you're going to read that you're going to dig into is Black Hope Horror. It's the true story of a slave cemetery that had a subdivision built over it, and the horrible, horrible hauntings and scenarios that played out after that happened. It's the real life, the real life. What's the word I'm looking for? Scenario behind the Poltergeist movies. Like, they literally built a subdivision over a cemetery. It was horrible. A Haunting of Jack is one of our cases from our Houston Ghost Research Group. You can listen to the podcast video where we interview the parents and get their story. And this is after the case is closed, so you get their resolution and their testimony and how that works. We do a follow-up interview with Akelta, one of the people involved deeply in this case, and we get her perspective on dealing with demons or sludge entities and that sort of stuff. And then we jump into, this was newly added to the podcast, and I'm super impressed with the telepathy tapes. They're still coming out, so I officially plugged this into the curriculum. I can't say enough about this. Definitely take the time to go through this and read this up and read or listen to the telepathy tapes. It's about these autistic kids who are so disabled that they can barely communicate. But this researcher is able to document that they have these insane internal gifts of the spirit, of telepathy, and they can talk to their people and that help them, their parents and teachers and the people they interact with in such a way, mind to mind and spirit to spirit, that's just amazing and fascinating. I think this is a testimony to the evolution of spirit and where things are eventually going to go. So I'm super happy to see this lady doing this work. It's another case study with Conjuring Up Philip. And then we jump into a bunch of near-death experiences. We also study a couple of reincarnation stories, so you can see what's going on there. And then I list out a couple of other relevant movies. One of my favorite is actually The Entity, which is based on a real story. Man, the movie The Entity is really good. But when you dig into the actual case and you watch the interview from the people who lived it, it's even more terrifying. So, some info here from Joseph Campbell and his book, The Power of Myth, which helps you understand basically different cultures, different religions, and how we're all connected and we all have the same universal rules and universal themes. Joseph Campbell was very influential on me in my early studies. So then we get into some of the very first tools. I teach you about meditation, hypnosis, neuro-linguistic programming, which is kind of like hypnosis and behavioral science had a baby, and it's how to build these connections and recognize behaviors and patterns and reprogram yourself, which is super useful for what you're going to learn next, which is hypnosis and trance. So I'm actually a certified clinical hypnotist. I don't really practice at the moment as that, but I went through that training and have the skill set, and it was ridiculously important for my spiritual growth and understanding of what's going on in the mind and the spirit. I have a completely new understanding of how consciousness and belief works because of my training in hypnosis. So I give you guys a really good quick orientation with a couple of videos, and I point you to the same place that I learned clinical hypnosis from, the Omni Hypnosis Training Institute. This is a paid program. We are not affiliated with them at all. We don't get any kickbacks. I highly recommend their program, though. It's a couple $100 to do the basic training, and then you can pay for the advanced training like I had. And man, it's crazy. It's eye-opening. I also am, you can see some of this guide is a work in progress. I also have a couple of books I'm going to provide here, and I have a couple of hypnosis workshops that I do and that I provide privately or in small sessions dealing with turning on your own psychic potential and giving you some additional hypnosis tools to be able to control what you're experiencing and put a filter in place so that it's easier for you to deal with. So then we're going to dig into some alchemy. I'm going to teach you about the pineal gland, or you're going to learn about the pineal gland and its role in our spiritual awakening. The pineal gland is crazy. I believe it's basically not only the theater of the mind. When you have internal visions and you see things internally, there's actually retinal cells in the pineal gland that register light. It's a light sensitive organ, even though it's buried like literally in the center of the brain. It's got a direct connection to the optic nerve, and it normally controls circadian rhythms, produces melatonin, but when we sleep, it also produces endogenously in and of itself, it produces DMT, dimethyltryptamine, which is the most hallucinogenic substance on the face of the planet. It's called the spirit molecule. It's what lets you see internally. It's what lets you dream. And if you can flood your brain with it, it lets you basically walk in the spirit world. It's crazy stuff. So you're going to learn a little bit about DMT. There's this phenomenal documentary that's hosted by Joe Rogan called DMT, the Spirit Molecule, that'll like walk you down the rabbit hole of what this stuff is and why it's important. Then we're gonna talk to some really crazy hippies, and I want you guys to basically listen to at least Terence McKenna's lectures on sacred plants as guides, the part 1 and part 2, but I've provided several other lectures there. These are primarily audio files. I got a lot of value out of these in particular. He has hundreds and hundreds of lectures because this guy was crazy enlightened. But I cherry picked the ones that I felt like everybody would have get the most out of. So now that you've got a general orientation into the true psychotropic substances, DMT and sacred plants from Terence McKenna, we're going to jump into Ormus, which is this. And it's the first thing that actually on the list that directly relates to alchemy. And it's a crazy story. So basically, it's this. I think of it as a supplement. It's a supplement you can make from a specific salt that is very, very rich in a diverse amount of minerals, specifically gold. So when you go through this process to make this white powder that's suspended in a liquid, in the wet process anyway, you get this super nootropic supplement. A nootropic is a chemical or a vitamin that's specifically targeted to help consciousness and the brain function. So that's what Ormus is. I provided a ridiculous amount of information here. There's a great movie called All the Gold You Can Eat by this gentleman named Joe DeCat. We interviewed him on the podcast. And it's just a rabbit hole. We actually, as a group, after we saw this, I made Ormus by getting the book and studying how to make make it through the official process, and then we tried it as a group. And you'll see our Ormus Journey podcast listed there, and it had a profound effect on all of us. It basically made it. It's like a spiritual upgrade in a pill. It made it almost effortless for those of us who can remote view to get into that space and to operate. We saw better. It took less effort. And if you were not already of that mindset, it's like it gave you a vibrational upgrade, a tremendous vibrational upgrade. So I'm a big fan of this stuff. You can get it online now. It's fairly ubiquitous. We don't sell it because I don't want the liability of making it for other people. But you can learn about Ormus and get Ormus online relatively easily, and it's not terribly expensive. So the first practical skill we're going to get into is dowsing. This is the first thing you're going to learn to do where you can physically have a ritual, have a practice where you can divine information that is outside of your consciousness. There's two books in particular, and I'm going to throw some additional video resources in here later. The two books are Principles of Dowsing. It's a really thin book. It's almost more like a pamphlet, but it breaks down exactly step by step the practice of dowsing. And then Healing Sick Houses is like a master class in dowsing. This guy lets you douse remotely. You don't have to be on at the actual location. And he does this using maps. And he can not only get information and douse using the maps, but he teaches you how to affect the location remotely using the map. So he basically turns the map into a voodoo doll for the property, and he can get information from the map as a proxy, and then he can do things to impact the location as a proxy. Can't say enough for Roy Proctor and Healing Sick Houses. Then we're going to shift gears and start looking at the real stuff. Now that you have dowsing under your belt, and you can connect to this information, we're going to take it to the next level and study remote viewing. I've got some key interviews here with some very well-known remote viewers. They share their story and it's powerful testimony for what this is. Do not skip the interviews by any means. Then we're going to jump into binaural beats. I'm going to give you a little crash course on what that is. And then we're going to get to the meat and taters of what we're going to learn, the gateway tapes and the gateway experience. Do not sleep on any of the pre-work. Do not jump directly to the tapes. You want to go through all of this stuff, all the material we provided, the videos and the playlists first, so that you know what you're getting into. Because the gateway tapes will break your brain, and you will be triggered into a spiritual crisis if you don't know what you're walking into. It's basically hacking your brain to become much closer to Christ consciousness. It upgrades your perspective and how you see and interact with the world, and it will force you to have spontaneous out-of-body experiences in remote viewing sessions. That's what it's designed to do. That's why the CIA used it to jumpstart their remote viewing and psychic spy programs. So these tapes, this program, this technology is made by a company called Hemisync. I put a link to their website up there. They have tons and tons of different programs available. They're all fairly expensive. The Gateway Experience albums, the seven waves / 7 album set that you are going to be listening to is about $550 just for the set of MP3s. It's well worth it. I would encourage you to think of it as, if you're going to spend money on anything on this list, spend money on the Gateway tapes. The hypnosis training is great. The NLP training that I referenced above is great, but nothing compares to the Gateway tapes. You will use this as a spiritual tool for the rest of your life. If you are a member of the study group, you can probably borrow somebody's copy from the study group temporarily just to go through the tapes for yourself. You can find versions or pirated copies of the tapes on YouTube. At least you can almost always find the first couple of them. But so the key things, once you get your hands on the tapes, what you want to do is treat it like a therapy session. Like you have to have headphones on, because the technology revolves around being able to give you specific audio cues and programming in the left and right channel. So it can't be over a speaker. It has to be on a phone, on headphones or earbuds. You need to be in a place where you can lay down, close your eyes, and focus on directions and exercises that they're going to give you internally. It will impact your body, your brain. You'll get some crazy vibration stuff going on. as they start to implement these upgrades. I recommend doing one tape a night before you go to sleep. Don't do more than one or two tapes a night. And you're going to want to go back to these tapes eventually for reference. Uh, um, but don't sit down and try to do them all at once. It would probably not be good. So do one a night, and then at some point you're going to have a spontaneous out of body experience. You're going to start remote viewing stuff, and then that's going to be able to prove to yourself that this stuff is real. That you are not, I like to say in my group, you are not your meat sack. That you are not your body. You are something beyond your body. You are a spirit, a consciousness attached to a body, but you are not that. And furthermore, we are plugged into a holographic reality that you learned about previously. And we natively exist. Our native place is not here. Our native place is in a different vibration, a different dimension, series of dimensions called the spirit world. And that place exists. And now you have access to it. You can see it and you can interact with it. Welcome to the club. Also, I'm a little bit sorry because it's going to be a difficult transition for you. Nothing on the planet is going to prompt an awakening of faith like this. It is very possible that you may have spontaneous communications with spirits, saints. Lots of folks talk to Jesus, like literally talk to Jesus. That is a real thing, which is why the next unit of study that we really dive into is Christianity. I give you a bunch of points about prayer and specific people that you should be studying, and provide you a bunch of links and a couple of books that were very influential for me, and provide a bunch of video resources here. I encourage you to take your time, go through all this. There's a specific unit on angels because I work a lot with Michael and angel magic. So there's, especially in my exorcism rituals, there's a bunch of resources there about that. There's a small unit on the Key of Solomon because that's a thing. I won't get too deep down the rabbit hole in this video for that. But we look at the Key of Solomon. I give you a basic introduction to Urantia, which is kind of like, the Old Testament was the Old Testament and introducing God to his people and in that part of the mythology. And the New Testament is about Jesus and his story, and he shook stuff up and changed the perspective and made it about love, not about following the Torah, and he focused it on love. Urantia is the next level. Urantia is the gospel for the modern age, and it gives us much more information and perspective about what's going on, and spirit guides, and how the world works, and cosmology, and the bureaucracy that exists in the root dimension, or where Creator resides, and how heaven works, and all of that stuff. That is Urantia. I encourage you to explore that, give you access to some other stuff that's really useful in a shamanic practice, some pre-recorded chants and prayers, and then we jump into the exorcism and spiritual protection, and I give you a tremendous amount, literally a tremendous amount of resources to dig into with this stuff. I highly encourage you to listen to all the interviews from all of the exorcists and take notes about common threads you see between this stuff and between their testimony and their stories, because it's important from my perspective to realize that these beings, demons, these nefarious creatures are out there, and they are amongst us. And now that you can see them, it's much more likely that they're going to notice you. So you need to be prepared and know what's going on. So we talk about a bunch of famous possession and case studies. And then I can't say enough about this movie, The Nefarious. Go watch this. And there's some testimony from a couple of exorcists down here talking about how that this is the most biblically accurate movie ever made about possession and demons and what they want and how they operate, to the point where when they were making the movie, they got harassed. They had to call in an exorcist to calm the set down, to continue filming. And then we get into my book, Help I'm Haunted, and I start giving you some resources to teach you how to use the new spiritual awakening that you've had, and manipulate energy and protect yourself through prayer and relationships with these other beings like Jesus and Mary and the Holy Spirit and all that fun stuff. So lots of info there, and lots of info on ritual prayers you can use for blessings and that sort of stuff. And then there's a list at the end of basic concepts and frameworks that we use a lot that don't really fit in any other place. So we encourage everybody to read The Four Agreements by Miguel Ruiz. It's a really good emotional intelligence book that will help you process a lot of what you're going to learn and experience. I'm a big fan of the teachings of Don Juan. Yes, I know this is fiction. This didn't actually happen. It doesn't matter. His training on what it is to be a shaman and interacting with the spirit world is flawless. So I really have everybody who's going down that path with me read the teachings of Don Juan, and we process that. There's also a bunch of cool stuff in Snow Crash by Neil Stevenson, Stranger in a Strange Land by Heinlein. There's a lot of energy work references you can use from the Iron Druid Chronicles, which is a straight-up fantasy book, but the author who wrote that, I'm pretty sure is a practicing shaman, or he knows how to use energy work because he describes it perfectly in there. And then a couple of other books that we have under review for the study guide. So if you're looking for a spiritual awakening, you're looking for what's the next level, how do I really turn on and plug in to what's going on in the world around me, and what is the truth, that's what this guide is designed to give you, is to walk you through the whole process, everything you really need to know to turn on and to plug into that higher level of consciousness. Would love to see you guys in the study group and interact with you. I consider it as a priest of the Melchizedek Brotherhood in the Order of the Melchizedeks, I consider it my mission to help mentor and guide people into spiritual awakening and find their faith and connect with creation and Creator. So I would love to help facilitate that for you. Want to hear you on Discord, and God bless. Hope you guys got something out of this. Y'all have a great evening.
Billions of people just living out their lives, oblivious. Unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself.